Okay. So hi everyone. So today, like we are here for like DevOps session, like Kyverno session, like which should be an add-on session. And like before we start, like since like Sagar, like this session would be uploaded in like Sagar Kakkala YouTube channel. And like before we start, like since Sagar Kakkala YouTube channel like has a like bit of diversified content, I would show like how exactly like you could like segregate content here. You just had to like remember my name, search for Sagar Kakkala and like you'll have my website, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And like in website, like everything is separated by contents of blog. You just had to see like where's contents of blog, and like everything is in a consecutive order. And like in website, you have with finance, and as well in YouTube, like everything is separated by playlists. So you'll have the important playlist here in the home tab itself, like DevOps with SK English and everything. And this video would be uploaded inside DevOps with SK English. And like before this session, like the one thing like I would suggest to watch as a prerequisite is okay, yeah, as a prerequisite is like this day 3, which is a Kubernetes session, because like in this session we'll discuss about Kyverno. Kyverno is nothing but a policy tool. Let's say like maybe like we'll understand it a bit practical. I'm just starting an instance. Let me go for a blog, and you have this blog uploaded here already. Mm, Let me remove everything from here. Okay. And before actually we proceed with this, like I would request, like if you are doing it for the first time, install micro-K8s, like because if you want to like have a demo server, you could go for micro-K8s, and as well like install Helm. You just had to go for this and maybe like this Docker push. You just had to run these commands like to install micro-K8s. Like once micro-K8 is done, and like we would be installing Helm repo as well, like Helm charts, like which are as a prerequisites for this session. Like I'll not be going around bit of explanation like what is Helm, what is Kubernetes and everything, because everything was said in detail in the previous sessions. And because like we are using a micro K8s, like we want to get familiar with the kubectl commands. Only thing difference between Kubernetes and micro K8s is the setup, and as well like since we were going to get familiar with Kubernetes, here in Kubernetes, the main tool you would use is like kubectl, but in Kubernetes you just had to like use micro K8s kubectl. That's where we had used alias here. Like every time we are running kubectl, it would run this command micro-K8s kubectl. That's what alias means here. Once the setup is done, we'll just install Kyverno here and from the Helm charts. And here, this is actually taken from Kyverno documentation, which you can find directly in the Google. Yes, kyverno.io. And installation, it's the same commands that I had put here. Where's this? Yeah, it's the same command that I had put here. So once the Kyverno is installed, mm, mm, yes, now we'll understand like how Kyverno is used practically. Let's say this is a deployment file. You could actually use the one that's in the blog, like you could just copy paste, or else like you will go for like GitHub repo. I just had the GitHub repo because like in the blog I had mentioned only like few policies here, but here I had actually got an additional policies as well. Like we'll start playing with it as simple. So yes, before you run this command, like just create a namespace. Mm, Maybe I'll just check if there is a namespace. Okay, there is a namespace React micro K8s. I'm just deleting it. Let us wait. Yes, I'm just creating a file. Like let it be like vi deployment.yaml. And here, like what happens is, let's say I had created a file like deployment file, and like to run this like deployment file, like what this deployment file content is, like it contains an image like Sagar Kakkala's world React microcatus, like which it would fetch from my Docker Hub account, like which it is public. But and like one more thing is, let's say if the image name is wrong, and if it is not available in Docker Hub account, let's say maybe I could show here. Mm, yes, it has like React microcatus. Like what if like someone made a mistake and still it will try to run the deployment? Maybe let's make a mistake. Just trying to tell like what Kyverno does exactly. Let's say this is not Sagar Kakkala's world. Like let's say this is Sagar Kakkala's world, and someone made a minute mistake. And like if I run this mistake, like let's say kubectl apply minus f deployment.yaml. Okay, I forgot to create namespace. Yes, kubectl create ns. Now if I run this, it created the pods, like it created the deployment. Like by default, it has two replicas, and to check the pods, it's as you could see, it says like error image pullback off. Like why does this error comes? Because there is no image that exists with, let's say like Sagar Kakala's, because we made a minute mistake. It should be world, but it is WORL. So what now happened is like your application is not up. And like monitoring this, like let's say this is a simple manifest file, but in the organizations you have like very large manifest files, and like monitoring the errors like would be bit very difficult task. So that is where like Kyverno helps us to adhere to certain policies. Let's say I could set up a Kyverno policy saying that the image name must starts with Sagar Kakkala's world, and how I would show you. And as well, like one more thing, what Kubernetes did, like why did it apply? It's because it only checks the syntax. Let's say if there is an error in syntax, it would not allow. Maybe let's make a mistake here. If I give it now, one second. As you could see, there is a line 10 that did not expect key. So it is not allowing me to deploy file. This is where like Kubernetes helps only in checking syntax validation, but not the other policies. So that's where like we will use Kyverno. As said, like we would once the Kyverno is installed, you will get a bit of CRDs, and inside CRDs are nothing but a custom resource definitions. And once you have the CRD, we can actually have policies like where we could set like if this is not there in that manifest file, like do not allow manifest file to create. Maybe let's see, delete, let me this delete this deployment. Okay, okay, but I should have. How is this not working? Let's say like we have some Kyverno policies. These are actually a cluster policies that we'll call. Yes, maybe this image pull policy. This is something like we'll see later. Replicas we'll do later. Okay. Yes. There is something called, yeah, we could actually go for like these patterns, the same way pattern. Let's take this example, like require label. Maybe what I could do is like whatever my file is there, let's say, maybe I'm just giving like require label itself now. But how can you change it to have it the image to that has actually, let's say what's important here is this like enforce, like validation action enforce, like only if this policy is true, only then it will allow to create deployment. And for what files, like it would create on issue only for deployment. Let's say if you want to like add it for ingress service pods, we would be adding it in a list, like down the deployment you will be adding service ingress and everything. And like what happens now is like it will check for the pattern, and the pattern in the sense like it will check inside our deployment manifest file, because we are actually configuring deployment, whether the metadata has the labels and has the app. Let's say if I actually go for like what deployment file I took, it goes for here, it goes for metadata. In metadata is the labels is there, inside labels app is there, and for app it must be something like here question mark is nothing but it must not be empty. And if you remove question mark, it's less like star, it could be empty as well. Like star means like it could be empty as well. Here I'm just giving it must not be empty and it could be anything. So that's where like question mark and star mean. So what does this mean? Like if it has like app and it has like label app, it would actually allow us to create the deployment. And if it does not have, it would not allow. Same way, like if we want to like keep it for image, what we will do is we'll go for like spec containers image, and it would look something like this. Maybe I'm not doing it now, but it would be looking something like this. The pattern would be something like this. Sorry. Mm, yeah, you could actually avoid name as well. It would be looking something like this. Sagar Kakkala's world slash. I think it could be after slash. It could be anything. So star. So that's how like we'll make ensure like in the pattern, like inside pattern, like instead of this metadata labels app, it would come like spec, sorry, it should be like spec containers image and Sagar class world slash. This is actually another policy that you could enforce. Maybe let's stick with labels, the one that we have now. You could do this as just like a round of experiment. I'm going for like labels. Let's see. According to this, like what it means is like the deployment file must have a label called app. Else it would not allow us to create because we had like validation action failure as like enforce. Let's see now. And to apply this cluster policy, all you have to do is require label. Yes. And to see, because these are like CRDs, and to see these, like where are these exist? Like you could just give like kubectl get cluster policy. And you have this cluster policy. Okay. I had created this yesterday, I guess. And to delete this, you could just delete cluster policy. And let's see if it's working or not. And as a round of experiment, what I'm doing is I'm removing uh, the labels here, both the labels, let's say. You could actually remove only this one. This would be enough. I'm just removing both the labels. Now if I give, because our cluster policy is up and according to our cluster policy, it must not create. Okay. Invalid value selector. Okay. Mm, maybe let's go. Okay. It must have label, I guess. Fine. Let me create another label which is not text. Selector test demo does not match. Okay, fine. It must not show this error. What happened? Ah, okay. Okay, the match labels. I forgot to remove label here. Fine. No, I don't know why insert is not working. Okay. Yes, now it had label. Mm, why is this not like giving me selector match app string? Selector does not match template labels. Yeah, all the labels are the same, right? Like where did it go? Selector labels are there. Okay. Oh yeah, demo. Yes, finally. Sorry. So finally it says like it is blocked because you must have label app. Because we had like mentioned in the cluster policy, it must for sure have the label app and only then we would allow it to create. So let's say like why these labels are used. Let's say inside your organization and you want like which team is creating this deployment. What will we do? Like instead of app, we will say like create a team that would allow us to create this. Like that would manifest like that would give a clear idea actually which team is creating this. Okay, my bad. Colon U. Okay, let me remove this. I'm just playing with this manifest file. So now, because now it has like label app, let's say. Now if I give, so the deployment is created as you could see, minus n. Yes, this actually these cluster policies applies to only the newly created deployment files, not to the ones that are already running. So for this, I'm just deleting this to create a new policy. Delete deployment. This is how it's used. And sometimes, let's say I want the pods to have like React microcreators namespace, like to be created inside only React microcreators namespace. And let's say like sometimes I face these issues like where if you do not specify this namespace or like while running the command, if you do not specify minus n command, what it does is like it creates the pods in default namespace. But like we want it to have a particular namespace. So that's where like we'll create another policy. So this says actually this is actually a condition where it denies. Like the namespace must be specified and it must not be. The request namespace must not be equal to default. And if it is default, you deny it. So that's where like we're actually targeting this policy as well. Mhm. vi, sorry, require namespace. Apply minus f, require namespace. Yes, now it's created. Now what I'm going to do, like inside deployment.yaml, because I don't want, I just want to test, like I'm just commenting this out so that to test like if it's working or not. By default, it must not create in default namespace because I had not specified any mention. As you could see, it does not allow like this. And as well, like because we had two cluster policies, it even checks for both the cluster policies. Let's say if I had removed the label app here and I had removed the namespace here, so it would ask us first to create the label and as well to mention the namespace. Mm, mm. Okay, I'm forgetting to press enter. Because I'm using Windows and Mac both parallel, I'm getting a bit confused. Yes. So now it will allow us to create. As you could see, it created. Like this is about actually the validation that Kyverno could do, like whether your file are following the standards or not. But what if like we could not like validate each and everything, but instead we want to mutate things. What do I mean by mutate? Let's say our deployment file has replica twos. Let's say maybe before get parts minus n. So it has like two replicas running. Sorry, two pods running. And like by default, we don't want the deployment to have like two. We want to have at least minimum three. So that is where like we will use the something called as mutate. So instead of like validation, this is actually mutate. Let's say in the kind we go for deployment and we are actually setting a replicas to 3. Whenever a new deployment file is created, even though your deployment file has like only 2, it would create 3. Same way mutate, you could actually do it for another, like whatever you want, you could actually modify even if it is default. Or let's say there is for every new deployment, the organization policy is to have like minimum 3 replicas. That's where like you could use Kyverno to use this mutate option. And as well, there is another mutate option as well, which you could try, like which I'll not be trying this here. What it says is like whatever the policy is there, like update image policy, and like if the kind is pod. For the pod, like we have image policy as always. By default, you'll have only three image pull policies. One is always. It's more like whenever a pod is created, it will pull the image from Docker Hub directly. Let's say it pulls the image from this Docker Hub directly. That is image pull policy always. Okay. 1 second. Yeah, and the other one would be image pull policy never. It means like it would never pull it from the Docker Hub account. Like whatever is there inside the cluster, like whatever is there inside your node, Kubernetes node, only from there it will pick up the image. And another image pull policy is like if not present. Let's say it will check inside your cluster whether the image is there. Like if the image is not there, only then it will fetch from Docker Hub account. So that's how three image pull policies work. Let's say you don't want like your image pull policy to be like never use the local images. You want every time to get it fetched from your AWS ECR or like Docker Hub. That's where you could actually use this mutate as well. As of now, like we'll not go for this policy. If you only could try, we would actually try these replicas. Let's say like we are going to use this mutate. The same thing. I'm actually deleting this. Mm, okay, deleting the deployment. Yes. Now I'm just moving for like variables or YAML. Oh, my bad. Where's this? Yes. Okay, so kind is set to deployment and everything. Now I'm just applying this Kubernetes cluster policy. Yeah, you could ignore this warning. Now what I'm going to do is, let's say like before deploying, I'm just showing you get deployment.yaml, like it has like replicas as 6. 1 second. Hmm. Yeah, now what I'm doing is I'm trying to apply the deployment.yaml file. Now if you see, as you could see, now there are like 3 replicas that created, even though our deployment has like 2 replicas. And how is this possible? It's because like we had used mutate option in Kyverno. Yes, I think yeah, we're done with the Kyverno. Like these are actually the basics and important like things that you could do in Kyverno. Any questions so far? Like I'll stop the recording now.